Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. We're diving into a really moving, true-to-life, local story right out of an old Lahore neighborhood. It's a story that brings up a pretty timeless clash, the rigid expectations of fate versus the raw, undeniable power of love. By unpacking exactly what went down in this community, we're going to learn so much about human resilience, social structures, and the massive choices that end up defining who we really are.
So, can true love truly rewrite destiny? This isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It is the absolute core of the story we're breaking down today. We're going to trace this incredible narrative where a quiet, everyday romance goes head-to-head with some incredibly strict, deep-rooted traditions. In this neighborhood, destiny was usually something decided for you. But as you'll see, one couple completely flipped that script.
Section 1. Two Worlds, One Lahore.
To really get a feel for this story, we have to set the scene. Picture the narrow, historic, densely packed streets of Old Lahore. This is where Zainab and Ahmed grew up, right side by side. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody and community ties are super strong. But it's also a place with intense social boundaries. Literally, two starkly different realities existing on the exact same street. On one hand, you have Zainab. She came from a struggling household, relying on intense manual labor, specifically sewing and embroidery, just to help her family survive day to day. And on the other hand, there's Ahmed. He came from a comfortable middle-class family and was actually pursuing an engineering degree. It's a massive juxtaposition, right? The daily grind of survival versus the privilege of higher education.
But you know how kids are. Despite those massive socioeconomic differences, a very human connection started to form. Because they lived so close in that neighborhood, before any kind of class consciousness could really sink in, they became friends. It was just this innocent, natural bond. And over time, as they grew up together, that friendship slowly but surely blossomed into love. It was this beautiful evolution happening totally beneath the radar of their differing social statuses. Section 2. The Wall of Class. Well, growing up eventually means facing the real world, doesn't it? The innocent bubble of their childhood neighborhood eventually had to collide with the strict, unyielding rules of their society. And this is where things shift from a quiet romance to a really high-stakes conflict. There were three specific, massive barriers standing right in their way. First, you had severe family differences. Second, the incredibly rigid customs of the community brotherhood, the Baradari, which strictly dictated social order. And third, what was basically an insurmountable wall of poverty. These weren't just little hurdles. Combined, they built a fortress that was designed to keep people like Zainab and Ahmed apart forever.
Section 3. A silent sacrifice. So, what happens when the unstoppable force of their love meets the immovable object of tradition? The families step in. And in these traditional structures, when families intervene, you're pretty much expected to just bow your head and fall in line. Ahmed's parents completely bypassed what he wanted and took total control of his fate, arranging his marriage to someone else entirely. To them, problem solved. The community customs were respected, the middle-class status was secure, and Ahmed and Zainab's story was essentially over.
And Zainab, there's a profoundly heartbreaking phrase used to describe her reaction: placing a stone on her heart, forced to bury her love. Think about how incredibly heavy that is. Because she was on the wrong side of that wall of poverty, she had no voice, no power to fight back at all. She just had to accept her fate in total silence, carrying this crushing emotional weight, fully believing she had to bury her true feelings forever just to keep the peace. But let me ask you, when you place a stone on your heart, does the feeling underneath it actually die? Can true love really be permanently silenced by family pressure and rigid tradition? Because right when this story feels like it's settling into a familiar, tragic rhythm, it takes a massive, dramatic turn. Section 4. The Ultimate Rebellion. The days pass, the preparations are finished, and the actual day of Ahmed's arranged marriage arrives. This is the absolute climax of our explainer. The internal conflict is about to violently spill over into public view. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1. The Barat, the grand wedding procession, literally arrives at the door. It's the point of no return. Step 2. Ahmed, the groom, stops the entire procession dead in its tracks. Step 3. He makes a shocking public declaration right there in front of everyone. And Step 4. The immediate, explosive uproar from his family. I mean, just imagine the sheer tension. The whole community is watching. Tradition is literally knocking at the door, and Ahmed completely shatters the script. And here is exactly what he said to cause that absolute uproar. "I will only marry Zainab, even if I have to leave everything behind." You can feel the absolute finality in that choice. He wasn't just choosing Zainab, he was publicly announcing that he was willing to throw away his middle-class comfort, his future in engineering, his family ties, literally the whole shebang, just to tear down that wall of class and poverty. It is a staggering moment of bold, undeniable defiance.
Section 5. The Victory of Love. After dropping a bombshell like that, a literal storm of chaos and outrage erupted within the family. Decades of tradition were being defied on the doorstep of a wedding. So, how does a conflict of this magnitude actually get resolved? It wasn't through arguing or logic or some kind of community mediation. It was actually profoundly simple. Amidst all that raging chaos, Ahmed's mother looked at him, and she saw true, genuine love in her son's eyes. That was it. The undeniable truth of his emotion pierced right through all those rigid customs. Her recognizing his genuine love was the ultimate key that finally dismantled the barricades of tradition.
Let's take a quick look back at this timeline, because it really shows the incredible weight of their journey. It started with that innocent childhood friendship in Old Lahore. We watched it evolve into this deep love. Then came the harsh family interventions, driven by class and poverty, leading straight into the heartbreak of the arranged marriage. And finally, that explosive climax at the doorstep. Seeing it laid out like this really highlights just how unbelievably difficult and perilous it was for Zainab and Ahmed to finally reach each other.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, Zainab and Ahmed did ultimately get married. And in doing so, they didn't just change their own lives. They taught their entire neighborhood a lesson. Their marriage became this living, breathing proof that true love absolutely has the power to cross any barrier, whether it's poverty, class, or the most deeply entrenched customs. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. We've just watched how a quiet girl who sewed to survive and an engineering student took on the entire weight of their society's expectations. So I leave you with this question. When you are faced with the walls of tradition in your own life, will you simply place a stone on your heart and let fate decide? Or will your convictions, your choices, and your love prove to be greater than fate? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the walls around you.